You're being attacked by the media.
Gosh sakes. Hello.
On behalf of Utah Cavers, and especially Salt Lake Grotto, we wish to recognize Earl Petersen as a lifetime caver.
You spelled it right.
This says, lifetime caver presented to Earl Petersen in appreciation and recognition of 48 years of cave exploration, conservation, education, and fellowship. Salt Lake Grotto, 1956 to 2004. There you go, Earl. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Would you like to say anything?
Is this my last chance to say something?
Nah.
No, you're gonna live forever. That's what he says.
I've really enjoyed being in this caving community all of these years. It's I blame it on my ability to get around, to walk, to run, to breathe, because of the exercise that I got in those somewhere between 40 and 50 years. But one of the things that was most important was the fellowship with individuals of various talents. I can remember back with Steve Olson talking mathematics and electronics with him, and with other people. I try to track back into their professions, but the one that I really honor myself is Dale Green, because for my entire caving career, he's been my hero. I don't know how many saw a picture that's on the table upstairs, but there's a picture of me going into my first cave with the grotto. And Dale was the grotto chairman. And we get to this blowhole cave down near Utah Lake. And I don't have a hard hat. I didn't know I needed a hard hat. I mean, I met him during the week, and that Saturday we were caving. And so here's a picture of me going down into this cave on a rope ladder. I'm safetied with a rope, and that impressed me. I was so impressed with all the safety. They cleared off all the rocks around, the big rocks around the entrance, so they wouldn't fall on you when you got down in. But here I am in this picture, no hard hat, with a carbide lamp strapped around my head. And Dale permitted me to do this. So, in a sense, there's a little blackmail at him there, but the picture doesn't show anything. It's only my word against his. He could deny it, and I couldn't stand up to that. But anyway,
we were young and expendable.
Yes. At least at that time we were.
I might mention that I never really. Once in a while, I did cave with Dale, but he didn't do anything that was stupid. But with Earl, that's a different situation.
What about the dead air passage?
Earl told me about how when he and his son were up at Polygamy's End, he discovered a Polygamy's End cave up in Tony's Grove, and his son, I don't know how old was he then? He was 12. 12. He was belaying him as he climbed down that vertical pit, and at one point he slipped. Earl did, and his son held him on belay until he got a hold of the wall again and was able to come out safely. Otherwise, he'd have been killed. I was over with Earl and his son in Antelope Springs Cave, and not long after, a lower passageway had been found. And we crawled through that. It was really a tight, skinny crawl. Yeah. Not skinny this way, but skinny this way. And you couldn't even put your helmet sideways through it. You had to take it off and shove it ahead of you. And so it was a matter of pushing your way through, exhaling and pushing, and finally getting to the other side. Coming back out, Earl was in front, his son was behind, and I came through there and I got stuck. And I couldn't go forward and I couldn't go backwards. I could get my hand up here and undo my belt, and his son behind me pulled my pants off. That's the way I got through that cave.
And along the way, other people have really been important to me. And I'm going to forget a lot of names, but I have to thank Earl especially. Earl came out on everything. And if you went on a trip, very often you went in that yellow international carry-all, and that thing just went and went and went. I have to tell this story that Jim Peck told. It was Jim Peck's grandmother that told this joke to Jim, and Jim put it in the newsletter. Seems Earl was on his deathbed, and his family asked, what kind of casket do you want to be buried in? And Earl says, I don't want a casket, I want to be buried in my carry-all. And his family asked, well, why is that? And he says, well, I think it pulled me out of every hole that I've ever been in. So, I think I've told that right. You remember it? Yeah. How many miles did you have on that when it was retired?
When it was retired?
Yeah.
About 530.
530,000 miles. So,
To the moon and
a lot of
back.
caving trips. But Earl has been the mainstay. Never could have done what we did in Big Brush Creek Cave. Getting down all the way down to the bottom of the Dead Air Passage was one of the most difficult things that I have ever done. If you ever want to know what it feels like to be dying and have to get out of a cave before you do, that's a good trip, is the Dead Air Passage. And we did it, and people say, well, we measured the carbon dioxide and the oxygen content, and you should be dead because you can't do what you guys did. But it happened. And Earl had been a mainstay for I don't know how many mapping trips. I always enjoyed mapping with Earl, especially when he was taped, because he had an analytical mind, and you didn't have to tell him where to place a station, and you could do the most clever things to shorten the number of stations you had to take. Any questions? Good. Oh wait, Earl's going to
When's our
Tell them a
date?
little
Wear
bit
the
more
jacket.
about the Dead Air Passage, the Jim Peck episode that I went on with. Can you remember?
Yeah.
Where Jim Peck and I went in?
Yeah, there's really one of the main passages in the Dead Air Passage we couldn't map. We got about 100 feet in. Earl and I and another fellow by the name of Steve Smith, I think was his name. I can't remember. He was a welder. And the Dead Air Passage, if you haven't been on that sort of thing, is extremely depressing. When you can't breathe, you never get a full breath of air. And we got 100 feet in there, and he had to quit, so it was never mapped. But Earl and Jim Peck went in there. It's maybe not even halfway down.
About a third of the way down.
About a third of the way down the Dead Air Passage. And they went in there, and they got in a parallel passage. And one went one way, and the other went one way for how many minutes?
10 minutes each
10
way.
minutes. Neither one of them found the end. It's never been explored. Earl and I were, Earl I think was in his early 50s, and I was in my late 40s when we did that. You know, we weren't young chickens. Here we got all these young bucks, and they just, this is too tough for them. Just don't make cavers the way they used to.
That's all my stories. Maybe there's more, but I can't think of them. But I want you to know, and these are words you don't hear from cavers very much, but I love you all. Okay? And good caving to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Earl. Thank you.